This HOA Karen actually called the cops on me for not giving her free gas from my own pump. I'm filling up my truck when Brenda Ashworth comes marching across my driveway like she's conducting a military inspection. She looks me straight in the eye and says, "Fill up my Range Rover, Marcus." As HOA president, I shouldn't have to pay for gas when residents have fuel available. When I said absolutely not, she whips out her phone and calls 911. "I need police assistance. This man is being hostile and threatening me." Here's what made her 911 call the dumbest mistake of her life. She had no idea who she was really talking to. I'm Marcus Kellerman, 52 years old. 20 years military logistics. My wife Sarah battled cancer for 2 years. When she passed last spring, I moved to Willowbrook Estates, where property was cheap and neighbors supposedly minded their own business. Willowbrook's got 200 homes. The HOA used to be run by Mrs. Henderson, who kept things sensible. Then came Brenda Ashworth. Real estate agent, drives a Range Rover. Within 8 months, she'd conned her way into HOA presidency on a platform of elevating standards and removing undesirable elements. I noticed her pattern quick. Violation notices to the Rodriguez family for excessive vehicle parking. They had 2 cars. Fines for Mr. Orion's vegetable garden being inconsistent with aesthetics. Harassment letters to the black couple who installed a basketball hoop. Meanwhile, her white neighbors with identical setups? Radio silence. About my fuel pump. When I bought my place, it came with proper agricultural permits for personal diesel storage. Completely legal, professionally installed, inspected annually by the fire marshal. Cost me 15 grand. During power outages, I helped 3 elderly neighbors keep medical equipment running. That's when Brenda targeted me. She came clicking over in designer heels, interrogating me about zoning compliance. When I showed her permits and agricultural exemption, her face went sour. "We'll just see about that." Within a week, I got a $500 violation notice for unauthorized commercial activity. My fuel pump was creating unfair advantages and attracting undesirable traffic patterns. I researched HOA covenants, hand-delivered documentation proving my pump was completely legal. Figured case closed. That's when I learned something about entitled people. They don't want to be right. They want to win. 3 days later, Brenda called an emergency HOA board meeting. 30 confused neighbors sat in squeaky folding chairs. Brenda had prepared a PowerPoint about my fuel pump. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious safety hazard that requires immediate action." Up flashed a photo of my pump with dramatic red arrows and scary captions, "Explosion risk" and "Environmental hazard." "This unauthorized installation poses significant risks to our families and property values," she declared. I raised my hand. "Ma'am, I provided documentation." "The floor recognizes only board members during formal presentations," she cut me off. She spent 15 minutes describing disaster scenarios. Explosions leveling city blocks. Environmental contamination. Property values crashing. The crowd was eating it up. Neighbors who'd waved at me for months suddenly looked at me like I was cooking meth. Therefore, I motioned for an immediate $1,000 fine and 48-hour removal deadline. For hands shot up. That's when I stood up. "Before you vote, might I suggest reviewing actual facts instead of Hollywood fiction?" I walked forward carrying a manila folder. "First, here's last month's fire marshal safety inspection, passed with flying colors. Marshal Henderson noted my installation exceeds current safety standards by a significant margin." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Second, my agricultural exemption paperwork, properly filed and renewed annually. Completely legal under state and federal law. Third, insurance confirmation. Full coverage. They actually reduced my premiums because of advanced safety features." Then the twist. "Oh, and Fire Marshal Henderson? He's sitting right there. Jim, why don't you tell folks about these safety hazards?" Fire Marshal Henderson stood up grinning. "Folks, I've inspected hundreds of fuel installations. Marcus' setup is textbook perfect. Safer than most commercial gas stations." The room exploded. Neighbors demanded explanations. Brenda's face cycled through more colors than a mood ring. "Actually," interrupted Dorothy Martinez, "during last winter's power outage, Marcus kept my husband Harold's oxygen machine running all night. His fuel pump literally saved Harold's life. That opened the floodgates. Story after story of my dangerous installation actually helping the community. Brenda called for recess. The vote was postponed. As neighbors filed out, I noticed Brenda hunched over her phone, typing with fury. 2 weeks later, I was in my garage when unfamiliar voices drifted in. City Zoning Inspector. Mr. Kellerman, we received a complaint about unauthorized commercial activity. Anonymous tip claimed you're operating an unlicensed fuel station. I invited him to inspect everything. An hour later, this is one of the most properly installed private fuel systems I've ever seen. Whoever filed this complaint was either seriously mistaken or lying. That's when Brenda appeared, clicking across the street. Inspector Morrison, I hope you're taking this serious violation appropriately. Ma'am, I've completed my inspection. There are no violations. The installation is completely legal. Brenda's smile cracked. But the environmental concerns? No evidence of commercial activity. Safety standards actually exceed requirements. In fact, filing false reports with city offices carries penalties under Code 847.3. Fines up to $5,000. After he left, Brenda hissed, "This isn't over, Marcus." That evening, Jake texted me. "Check Nextdoor app. Someone's going nuclear on you." Brenda had created concerned Willowbrook resident, conducting character assassination. Posts about dangerous fuel storage, declining property values. Then I noticed something. 3 of the most vocal anti-Marcus accounts were created last week with stock image profiles. Someone was manufacturing outrage with fake profiles. I screenshot everything and started building a file. Next morning, an unmarked sedan crept into my driveway. 2 people started prowling with cameras. I stepped onto my porch. "Morning, folks, something I can help you with?" Property assessment. Routine evaluation for insurance compliance. Interesting. My insurance company didn't mention scheduling any assessment. Mine showing identification. Buzzcut stepped forward with swagger. "Sir, I strongly suggest you return inside. I strongly suggest you remove yourselves from my private property before I contact actual law enforcement." They retreated after snapping 50 photos. 2 hours later, unknown number. "Mr. Kellerman, this is Rick Santos from Apex Investigations. We need to discuss Brenda Ashworth immediately." "I'm listening." "She hired my firm to investigate you. Requested anything illegal or compromising. Offered $5,000 bonus for information resulting in your arrest. And you're sharing this because?" "Because when I conducted your background check, I discovered exactly who you are. Mr. Kellerman, this woman hired me to dig up dirt on a police chief." The twist hit like lightning. Brenda never researched what I actually did for a living. She has no idea about my profession? None. When I informed her you were law enforcement, she accused me of fabricating excuses. That's when I decided this conversation was necessary. But the nuclear bomb dropped that afternoon. Dispatch called. "Chief, someone filed a harassment complaint against you. Intimidation, stalking, abuse of authority." "Who filed it?" "Brenda Ashworth. Claims you've been conducting surveillance, making threatening gestures." This woman filed a fabricated police report against the actual police chief. Routed through standard channels. Assigned to Lieutenant Martinez. I'm recusing myself. 2 hours later, Lieutenant Maria Martinez sat in my kitchen. "This is awkward, Chief, but I'm required to ask, any validity to these allegations?" "Maria, I've spoken to this woman exactly twice. Both times in public, both with witnesses, security footage available." After Maria left with unfounded complaint with evidence of harassment pattern, I sat with a beer watching sunset. Brenda had just committed the greatest strategic blunder of her life. That weekend, I dove into public records. Willowbrook's HOA financial records are public information. I pulled up 8 months since Brenda took over. Legal consultation fees, $15,000 paid to Ashworth and Associates, Brenda's brother-in-law's law firm. Landscaping, $8,200 to Premier Grounds Management, Brenda's nephew Derek. Security consultation, $6,500 to Residential Safety Solutions, Brenda's cousin Mike. Emergency roof repairs, $12,400, Brenda's other brother-in-law. Every major contract went to her relatives with inflated prices. Total theft, $47,000 in 8 months. None of these family connections were disclosed. Every vote was presented as competitive bidding. Brenda had been systematically stealing from the community while harassing anyone who might threaten her operation. Monday morning I called the DA's office. Not as police chief, as concerned citizen. White-collar crime unit, Detective Reynolds. I'd like to report suspected HOA embezzlement. Multiple family members receiving inflated contracts. Estimated theft approaching $50,000. Come in this afternoon. Detective Reynolds was exactly what you'd want. Sharp eyes, CPA background. I spread evidence across his table. Bank records, contract approvals, family business registrations. Holy shit, Reynolds muttered. She's not even hiding it. 3 contracts in one meeting, all to family, all at luxury pricing. Gets better. That landscaping contract should have cost $4,000 maximum. Her nephew charged $8,000. Mr. Kellerman, this is textbook embezzlement, fiduciary violations, potential federal wire fraud. Timeline for charges? 6 to 8 weeks minimum. You'd testify? Absolutely. That evening I convened war council at Mel's Diner. 6 neighbors gathered. I presented civilian-friendly facts. So this witch has been stealing our money to fund her family's empire? Bob Orion asked. Exactly. 47,000 documented. The table erupted. Here's our plan. The DA is building criminal case. Meanwhile, we organize special HOA meeting demanding financial audit and vote of no confidence. Are we legally allowed? Janet Williams asked. Dorothy whipped out bylaws. Article 7, Section 3. Any 10 homeowners can petition. Simple majority can remove board members. What about retaliation? Bob asked. That opened my trump card. Folks, I should mention something. I'm Police Chief Marcus Kellerman. Brenda's been filing false reports and hiring investigators for months, completely unaware of who she was targeting. Silence, then Dorothy burst into laughter. This princess has been trying to intimidate our police chief? That woman is dumber than a box of broken hammers. Wednesday morning brought Brenda's emergency meeting with 24 hours notice. The agenda: emergency safety resolution, immediate removal of hazardous fuel storage and $10,000 community safety deposit. I arrived to chaos. Brenda had stacked the deck. Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing imminent safety crisis. She'd brought props, a briefcase of federal safety reports, proving my pump violated 17 regulations. PowerPoint with dramatic accident photos. According to these federal findings, Mr. Kellerman's installation poses immediate risk of explosion and potential terrorism concerns. Terrorism concerns. The audacity was breathtaking. Therefore, I motion for immediate $10,000 safety deposit with fuel system removal within 48 hours. Bob raised his hand. Didn't the fire marshal approve this? Fire marshals aren't qualified to assess federal terrorism protocols. I stood up. Before this vote, I'd like to request copies of these federal reports. Brenda's smile faltered. The documents contain sensitive security information. Actually, I'd like to call the federal EPA to verify these protocols. Color drained from her face. That's not necessary. EPA Emergency Hotline, Agent Morrison speaking. I'd arranged this demonstration. Agent Morrison, this is Marcus Kellerman in Willowbrook, Ohio. We're dealing with an HOA claiming federal terrorism protocols require fuel pump removal. Could you verify? Sir, the EPA has no such protocols. Terrorism assessments are handled by Homeland Security, and they don't regulate private fuel pumps unless they exceed commercial quantities. The room erupted. Furthermore, anyone claiming to possess federal terrorism documents without security clearance could be violating national security laws. Brenda looked faint. Actually, Dorothy called out, I motion we postpone all votes pending complete financial audit. The motion carried unanimously. Thursday evening, Child Protective Services arrived. Anonymous reports I was exposing children to hazardous materials. 20 minutes later, the caseworker closed her tablet. Sir, this is one of the most professionally maintained systems I've encountered. Filing false CPS reports carries serious felony penalties. Friday morning, Detective Reynolds called. Marcus, Brenda made interesting moves. Large cash withdrawals, attempted wire transfers to offshore accounts. She tried to empty the HOA reserve fund, all $63,000. Bank froze the accounts. She tried to steal the entire reserve? Every penny. We also traced those social media accounts. 3 were created from Brenda's home IP. Digital evidence of harassment. How long before arrests? Monday morning. Federal wire fraud, state embezzlement, harassment, filing false reports. 10 to 15 years. Monday morning arrived with drama. Unmarked federal vehicles rolled into the subdivision. Brenda had called another emergency meeting for 9 a.m., planning to expel me entirely. Detective Reynolds had coordinated arrests to happen during the meeting. I walked in at 8:45. Brenda announced with manic energy, "Today we finally resolved the safety crisis." She prepared elaborate presentation. Photos, fake testimonials, a petition demanding my removal. This individual has refused to comply, filed frivolous complaints, created hostile environment. Therefore, I motion to expel Marcus Kellerman with immediate forfeiture of all rights. That's when the back doors opened. Detective Reynolds walked in with 2 federal agents and a state prosecutor. The room went silent. "Mrs. Brenda Ashworth, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, filing false police reports, and conspiracy to defraud." The room exploded. Reynolds addressed the crowd. "Mrs. Ashworth has been charged with systematically embezzling HOA funds by steering contracts to family members. Total theft exceeds $50,000 over 8 months. Additionally, filing multiple false police reports, hiring investigators to harass residents, and attempting to steal the entire HOA reserve fund." That's when I stood up. "Brenda, you've been demanding I remove my fuel pump for months, filing false reports, hiring investigators, claiming I'm a terrorist threat." I paused. "Too bad you never bothered to find out that I'm Police Chief Marcus Kellerman, and you've just been arrested for exactly the kind of crimes I've spent 20 years putting people in prison for." Silence, then eruption. Neighbors demanding explanations. Someone applauding. Brenda's face cycled through shock, rage, disbelief, terror. "You," she stammered as handcuffs clicked. "You're the police chief you've been filing false reports against for 3 months." "Yeah." Surprise. As agents led her away, TV crews caught every moment. Dorothy stood up grinning. "I nominate Marcus Kellerman for emergency HOA president." "I respectfully decline," I said. "I've got a police department to run. But I'll help clean up this mess." 6 months later, Willowbrook transformed. Brenda plead guilty to federal embezzlement. 18 months prison, 3 years probation, full restitution of $67,000. License permanently revoked. The money was returned and put to work. New playground equipment, road repairs, emergency fund. The new board operated with transparency, accountability, treating neighbors like human beings. My fuel pump became a neighborhood celebrity. During February's ice storm, I helped 8 families keep generators running. I established Neighbors Helping Neighbors emergency preparedness program. Free workshops on security, planning, legal fuel storage. We've helped 12 families install backup systems. The story gained national attention. HOA Karen picks wrong neighbor. He's the police chief, got over 2 million views. State legislation now requires HOA board training on fiduciary duty. Willowbrook provisions mandate independent auditing for HOAs managing over 50,000. I remarried last spring. Dorothy's granddaughter Sarah. She helps run our legal clinics. Life in Willowbrook has become what suburban communities should be. Neighbors helping neighbors, transparent governance, shared responsibility. And my fuel pump? Still running perfectly. Still legal. Still helping people. Drop your HOA horror stories in the comments. Subscribe for more justice stories, because there are way too many Brendas who need to learn that actions have consequences. Sometimes karma needs a badge.